Welcome back to my channel, Star Booze.
Van Johnson sadly passes away after exposing the hidden black fear. Behind A8 MGM, Van Johnson's happy face was Charles Vanell Johnson was born in August. In Newport, Rhode Island, on the 25th of 1916. His early years were difficult in separation. He was the sole child of Charles E. Johnson and Loretta Johnson, American-Swedish plumber. Unfortunately, Van's mom left the family as a young child, leaving a long-lasting emotional effect. His dad, rigid and emotionally aloof, brought up Van mostly by himself. Van looked for comfort and escape with music and performance, thriving in extracurricular band and theater programs when he was in school. After graduating from Rogers Johnson, transferred from Newport High School to New York City with aspirations to succeed in the entertainment industry. His career started engaging in nightclub performances and working in musical theater, which included a period of the cast of Broadway productions, including Too Many Girls and New Faces of 1936. It was in this initial stage that he attracted the interest of Hollywood scouts, resulting in minor movie parts and a Warner Brothers contract. But his first experience in Hollywood produced just small portions, and he went back to New York, uncertain of the future. Johnson's breakthrough occurred after in the early days. MGM signed him. The 1940s. Louis B. Mayer, head of the studio, promptly saw Van's potential, preparing him to become a celebrity as one of MGM's most profitable male leads. His pure appearance and kind disposition stood out in a time when a lot of celebrities were cast as either sulky romantics or tough guys. Van's everyman appeal struck a strong chord with audiences during a conflict. 1943 saw his appearance in A Guy Named Joe. Spencer co-stars Irene Dunne and Tracy. The movie was a significant achievement and functioned as his breakthrough part. Paradoxically, Johnson was involved in the film's production. Involved in an almost deadly vehicle collision, it resulted in a metal plate in his skull. Due to his wounds, he was deemed ineligible to serve in the military throughout the Second World War. As many prominent men, Van Johnson left for the war, but stayed in Hollywood, where he established himself as a trustworthy and well-known figure in patriotic movies and romantic dramas. His incapacity to serve in the armed forces, ironically, he rose to prominence as a substitute on-screen protagonist for innumerable American households. During the 1940s, Johnson starred in many extremely popular movies, such as 30 Seconds Above Tokyo, A.E., Sailor and Two Girls, 1944, The Cane and Thrill of a Romance, 1945, Mutiny, 1954. He was frequently positioned across from MGM's leading actresses, such as Esther Judy, June Allison, and Williams Garland. He often played earnest, young military personnel, spouses or boyfriends, personalities with genuineness and hope. Johnson's June Allison and I had chemistry that was fans particularly loved them, and they were often shown together on television as the ideal couple in the world. His additionally displayed were singing and dancing abilities. In comedies with music, while his dramatic range became apparent in movies such as State of the Union, 1948, in opposition to Catherine Tracy and Command, Hepburn, and Spencer, 1948, was a tense wartime decision drama. Van Johnson's fame attained peak in the middle of the 1940s, when he was regarded as one of the best box offices attracts Americans. Magazines for fans, featuring him on their covers on a regular basis, and hundreds of letters were sent to him, every week from fans worldwide. His polished, entirely American appearance made. He is particularly well liked by teenagers, both mothers, and their daughters. As the 1950s saw a fall in the studio system and new forms of acting surfaced, such as Johnson's, the film career slowed. However, he modified by switching to television as well as the stage. He made appearances in a lot of TV series such as Love, Batman, The Love Boat, American Style, and Murder, she wrote. He performed on stage as roles in both national and regional theater excursions, such as a lengthy run in La Cage of Where Is His Stage Presence, Damn Yankees, remained resilient and charming to viewers. Even as he grew older, Johnson's relationship with his supporters persisted. He took part in retrospectives of films and was always cherished by co-stars for his kind nature and kindness. His co-workers have characterized him as a genuine, gentlemanly, polite, humorous, and trustworthy. Van Johnson wed a former Eve Abbott, a theater actress, in January. One day after her, on the 25th of 1947 separation from Keenan Wynn, a character actor was completed. The time of this in Hollywood, marriage sparked curiosity, and beyond considering. The quick succession of occurrences and the interwoven connections among all those concerned. Eve Abbott had been included in the social circle of Hollywood 4 years, and Keenan Wynn, her ex-husband, was not just a close buddy of Van Johnson, but also a well-known performer in his own, well-known for having a strong character roles. The bond between the three was remarkably intricate and served as the basis for. Despite the lack of specifics, Hollywood rumors were disclosed to the public at that time. Soon, following their 1948 marriage, Van and Eva brought their only kid into the world, a Skylar. Johnson is her daughter. This new and additional layer was added by family dynamics to an already challenging home situation. Johnson also took on the role of stepfather to DeWynn, were Eve's 2 kids from her marriage. Ned Wynn, Tracy Keenan, and Edmund Keenan Triumph. They would both later carve out occupations in the entertainment sector, Tracy Keenan Wynn's increased acknowledgement as a screenwriter. In spite of appearances of normalcy in the family, there were deep-seated undercurrents in this home, and would finally come to light in public decades later. Following the passing of Eve Abbott at 90 years old in 2004, a startling revelation was made public in a declaration. She had been ready before she died. She said in it that her union with Van Johnson wasn't one of the real passionate dedication, but instead a strategic action planned by the strong studio system, in particular MGM, in order to preserve Johnson's reputation. Eve claims that MGM executives were keen to put an end to ongoing claims regarding Johnson's purported homosexuality, out of concern that the career could be derailed by any scandal of one of their most lucrative topmen. She asserted that she was selected, like a prop, to act out the role of, in actual life, Johnson's wife only, because he would only ever date her. Consent to get married. They required their large star to get hitched, she remembered, resentfully stop gossip regarding his sexual inclinations, and regrettably, I would that be the only woman he married. The relationships that exist between Van Johnson, Keenan Wynn, and Eve Abbott weren't just romantic. They were caught up in affection and feeling that disobeyed traditional labels for relationships. Even the adored father of Keenan Wynn comedian Ed Wynn offered his thoughts on their dynamic's perplexing character. I can't keep them straight, he said. Evie adored Keenan. Keenan adores Evie. Van adores Evie. Evie adores Van. Van adores Keenan. Keenan adores Van. His joke, although amusing, it also spoke to deeper complexity, perhaps referring to notonly intimacy on an emotional level, but possibly the gossip about the sexual identities of males in a time when such things were completely confidential. Ronald L. Davis, a biographer in his Van Johnson's life story, stated that the homosexuality of Johnson, or at least the concept of sexual ambiguity, was kind of an open secret in the Hollywood production community. Davis claims that it appears to be well known in the movie capital that Johnson was gay patterns. In spite of this, throughout the Johnsons' career peak, not a single rumors of this kind began to circulate into fan magazines or newspapers. The Hollywood public relations apparatus, headed by men such as the powerful studio head of MGM Louis B. Mayer, put forth extra effort to create and maintain the perception of healthful, all-American, romantic stars. Mayer renowned for having strict authority over his contract players, who were allegedly intense attempts to repress any controversy involving Johnson or his close relationships with other male actors, which the mayor thought might detrimental to MGM's well-chosen brand. Johnson and Eve were married for a long time, more than 20 years, yet it wasn't a joyful unity. At last, their relationship started to fall apart in the early 1960s. Ned Wynn, Eve's son, claims that Van Johnson was the tipping point, was playing. In the musical The Music Man in the West End of London, depicting the Harold Hill was a charming professor. During this production, Johnson allegedly began having an affair with one of the cast's significantly younger male dancers. Johnson allegedly abandoned his mother, according to Ned. For a boy, actually, for a guy. He is in the lead boy dancer, thereby validating the allegations that Johnson had been plagued by. Years. In 1961, the pair split up, and following a protracted period of alienation, their divorce was completed in 1968, 4 years after the mayor's passing, when the MGM's protecting influence, there was no longer a patriarch. Later on, she acknowledged in public that I would never had wed Van Johnson if I had known he was homosexual. This direct admission revealed shedding light on what many people in Hollywood believe, long suspected by circles, but never freely discussed. In the middle of the century, when professions could be ruined by allegations of homosexuality, stars were frequently influenced by studios, private lifestyles to keep a pristine public image. MGM, the strong studio that oversaw Johnson's professional life, was renowned for exercising significant control above its stars. Additionally, it is extensively felt that the union was significantly urged, if not explicitly planned by the studio, to refute ongoing speculation regarding Johnson's sexual orientation. In 1960, following years of Evie filed for divorce because to stress. The decision seemed to signal the conclusion of their turbulent marriage, yet the narrative didn't finish. Extremely well organized. Remarkably, the pair got back together for a short time. In 1961, Evie even went to London with Van when he was shooting the musical The Music Man modification, in which Johnson assumed the Professor Harold Hill's on-stage role, despite Robert Preston's well-known role in the part in the movie. The journey might have been an effort to make amends or just a brief yet lasting relationship. However, the attempts were in vain. By 1968, the divorce was definitively concluded, bringing their tumultuous union of almost 20 years till the end. Years later, Evie thought sourly on the influence of the marriage on her life, both monetarily and emotionally. In a 1999 declaration, she disclosed the long-lasting wounds caused by the connection. I've been reduced almost impoverished and went bankrupt a few years ago since Van did in gratitude for the things I'd done for him by being compelled to wed him by MGM. Her statements are not limited to her individual sacrifices, but at the expense of living under the false impression that elderly Hollywood's stars were expected to their relatives. Following their separation, Evie made Beverly Hills her home for armament, probably attracted by the comfort of the orbit of Hollywood and possibly the traces of her previous social life as a Hollywood star's wife. Finally, she moved to the state of Florida, spent her last years with family obscureness, dying in July 2004. Her narrative is mostly eclipsed by Van's celebrity, acts as a moving reminder of the females standing in the wings of leading males in Hollywood, frequently enduring high personal expense. Past the tangled network of his personal connections and Eve's public persona also provided insight. inside the inner life and character of Van Johnson life, exposing a man very different from the cheerful, friendly roles that it made, he became well known. Despite his radiant on-screen persona, often portrayed as the lad next door or endearing combatant, Eve explained Johnson is frequently irritable and angrily unstable. She ascribed a large portion of his attitude to an unpleasant and challenging early life. His early years were tainted by tense relationship with his dad, whose rejection and emotional detachment said to have caused severe psychological wounds. She claimed that Johnson had very little tolerance for stress or disagreement. At the initial indication of domestic conflict or feeling uneasy, he would suddenly withdraw inside his sleeping quarters and shut the door, keeping everyone else out. This emotional disengagement pattern became a distinguishing feature of his relationships and adult life. Van Johnson, a well-known actor in Hollywood who worked for numerous decades, quit performing in the early 1990s. After removing oneself from the spotlight, Johnson decided to become a more sedate, private existence in New York City. He moved into a penthouse, the apartment at 405 East 54th Street on the east side of Manhattan. He was situated in one of the city's most coveted communities, renowned for its sophisticated structures, closeness to Central Park, and a thriving cultural scene. Being a resident in such an elite, Johnson was able to appreciate the sidey life's conveniences and comforts, while staying quite near the centers for the entertainment sector and the theaters that were previously at the heart of his professional life. As he grew older, Johnson ultimately changed to a more nurturing home atmosphere that is appropriate for his requirements. His new home was Tappan Manor, a center for assisted living in Nyack, New York. The picturesque western town of Nyack-the-Hudson River's shore provided a serene and kind environment far away from the fast-paced Manhattan. The reputation of Tappan Manor is provide high-quality care to its inhabitants, including people with age-related health issues, enabling them to keep a high standard of living in their later years. Johnson spent time here, his last days in the company of healthcare providers and a community that cherished dignity and respect for its senior citizens. At Tappan Manor, Van Johnson died on December 12, 2008, when he was 92 years old. His lifespan was noteworthy, particularly taking into account the numerous difficulties that a Hollywood life can be unpredictable at times. Following his passing, Johnson's remains were cremated, a decision that can indicate a yearning for simplicity or intimacy preference consistent with contemporary memorial procedures. Even if his death signaled the end of period, the legacy of his cinematic contributions and television still commemorated and honored by supporters and both historians. In spite of his lengthy and Van Johnson's prosperous career was never fact that was nominated for an Academy Award that many people who value his contributions to the film industry. At the height of his professional life, especially throughout the 1940s, Johnson was primarily recognized in the 1950s for his constant joy and friendly appearance on TV. He frequently represented the archetype of the lad next door, providing coziness, genuineness, and appealing qualities to his roles that made audiences like him. He was trustworthy and dependable, which made him a frequent in Hollywood dramas and musicals and comedy, even though it occasionally meant the award committees ignored him, concentrated on more dramatic or innovative performances. But, considering Johnson's career following his death, a few reviewers and cinema academics evaluated his corpus of work again and discovered a more profound talent beneath his cheery demeanor. As one critic noted, that Johnson had the ability to performance worthy of an Oscar and leads more than the majority of movie stars can assert. This acknowledgement implies that Johnson's absence of an official honor. The reason for recognition was not a lack of talent or creativity, but instead from the kinds of parts he played and the opinions of the time about actors of his fashion sense. His performances demonstrated subtlety, depth of feeling, and genuineness that might have been welcomed with more praise had conditions been different. For his lasting impact on the movie, Van Johnson received recognition in the industry with a Stardom on the Walk of Fame in Hollywood, situated at Hollywood Boulevard, 6600. This esteemed honor serves as a public evidence of his influence on Americans' movies and acts as a tangible reminder of his creations for countless admirers and guests. The star represents not just his accomplishments, but also the love and he gained reputation in the field. It guarantees that as the years go by, Van Johnson's name is still inscribed on the foundation of Hollywood's past, honoring a career that was characterized by professionalism, affability, and durability appeal.